Okay, hi. Today I'm going to talk about, well, just read from this book. I think I've already read, oh, this was over a year ago. This was after the shutdown. Maybe from this book. I know I've talked about it in the past. So White Trash, the 400-year untold history of class in America. Because I've been looking a lot, I'm still with this whole Victorian era, Camelot, Kennedy, and the parallels between the England and Britain under Queen Victoria. And I mean, it was after her husband died that the British Empire kind of became much more predatory. And that was, I think that's kind of when Mountbatten steps in. Now this is I forget if it's father or grandfather to Lord Mountbatten, who was very influential in Prince Charles's life and within the British monarchy and the decisions that were made. And he was sexually molested. I mean, a pedophile. Because if you go onto his Wikipedia page, it's there of, you know, boys, I forget if it was foster care, some type of, you know, public care system where these boys were brought to him. There's even a chauffeur who says, so of course, you know, I'm sure Prince Charles would be like, no, never. Because the predators go for the, you know, the easy prey. Somebody's not going to have any protection from them. Now, if it's the father or somebody in the family, a respectable person with their daughter or son, that's fair game. It's their property. And that is no different in the West than in the East. And, you know, that's in the 1800s, women were making advances in women's rights. And into the early 1900s, but with the women's lib movement that began in the 60s under Betty Friedan, of having it all and breaking glass ceilings and women getting into positions of power in the workplace and commerce, the political arena, those, you know, the professional world, and dropped. Therefore, all of the educated women are going into the workplace and just cashing in and worried about their careers and themselves, and the moral authority that women the ruling elite women used to provide and work. It was normally in tandem with the clergy. And this is, you know, this is Muslims, Jewish, Christian, you know, all of the different religions, you see the same thing. And it is these women who set what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. Doesn't matter what the laws say. I mean, this I show ad nauseum with the Spanish legal system and their constitution, almost utopian. And women in Spain have no more rights than some backwater, you know, place in India or Sri Lanka, where Sharmini Curry is from, head of Institute for Capacity Development at the IMF. And these women, I mean, the Sati games that they played with me, I just demonstrate that's exactly what's going on in these little villages. No different. I mean, when everything happened in Spain, I said, oh yeah, great, there's democracy. Women here have no more rights than my Indian friend who told me in the 80s that her husband said, I can divorce you, I can divorce you, I can divorce you. And she'd be on the street without her kids and nothing except the jewelry that she had gotten when she got married, which was, I mean, you know, collars and rubies. I mean, I don't know, there was $500,000 dropped just on the jewelry when she got married, and that's back in the 1980s. So, you know, it's all over the place. So what I wanted, oh gosh, did I lose my, I had this marked. Okay, it is. No. Oh, okay, I'll just read from this part. Okay, the persistent problem. Oh no, here it is. Okay. Well, I did want to kind of just briefly go through what is the content of this book. So, you know, I read the title. So chapter 1, Taking Out the Trash, Waste People in the New World. John Locke's Lubberland, The Settlements of Carolina and Georgia. Benjamin Franklin's American Breed, The Demographics of Mediocrity. Thomas Jefferson's Rubbish, A Curious Topography of Class. Andrew Jackson's Cracker Country, The Squatter as Common Man. Pedigree and Poor White Trash, Bad Blood, Half-Breeds, and Clay Eaters. Clay Eaters in the United States is like the potato people in Ireland. And in fact, it would be interesting to see the family trees of the Clay Eaters, because poverty perpetuates from generation to generation, just as you know, domestic abuse and the different dynamics within a family. You see this with the Kennedy family. So, and I mean, every family in the British royal family, and all of these families, rich and poor, need to start taking a hard look at the history of their family and how it's affected them and where we are today and what they are doing today, and you know, the narcissism epidemic and how all of these people are just turning a blind eye to what's going on in the arenas under their purview. This can be at the local, you know, communities, and this, I mean, I know people across the United States and throughout Europe, and in the urban areas, the big urban capitals, and all over. And it is, you know, everybody just wants to cash in. Everybody wants to, don't rock the boat, Wendy, don't rock the boat. And that's why I've been canceled. Because yeah, I want to rock the boat. Because if somebody doesn't rock this boat, it's going to sink. I mean, we've gone through this time and time again throughout history. So cowards, poltroons, and mudsills, civil war as class warfare, thoroughbreds and scalawags, bloodlines and bastard stock in the age of eugenics, forgotten men and poor folk, downward mobility in the Great Depression, the cult of the country boy, Elvis Presley, Andy Griffin, and LBJ, Great Society, white trash makeover, redneck roots, deliverance, Billy Beer, and Tammy Faye, ousting rednecks, slumming, Slick Willie, and Sarah Palin. America's Strange Breed, the long legacy of white trash. So give you an idea of, you know, this does get into a historical examination, which is good. I haven't read the entire book, but I have read, you know, quite a bit. And again, when I can, you know, get a library and not the fight the Philistines, as my father would say, all over Washington, get a decent, you know, income, decent living conditions, and you know, be able to really get into all of this and get into, I mean, what I want is the authorities, FBI and the FBI Director Wray and Attorney General Garland. I have solicited an investigation into all of the different feminists. It really is mainly directed at the women, whether that be the ruling elite women, you know, Stepford wives, trophy wives, all over the place, or in academia, you know, or the different professions, because it's all the same game. All of them are playing the same game. And, you know, I've never been liked by women as a homogenous group. But most of them are just jealous of me. They're narcissists and they want to sit around doing nothing and telling the world how great they are. Well, I'm hard at work and just trying to tell the world what they need to know and get their asses moving. I don't want to be in any limelight or anything like that. I can't stand having my photo taken. I can't stand crowds. I can't stand being on a podium. You know, here's the information. You go, you go, you go. That's what true leadership is about. Not getting on a freaking podium and telling everybody how great you are. So, you know, what I want to highlight here is what is real class. So we know what class is, or we think we do. This is fables we forget by the introduction, or think we do. Economic stratification created by wealth and privilege. That's not what class is about. See, the premise right here is based on a faulty one. And my father talked to me about this within the medical community. Yeah, he said one of the problems is that everybody today is building on bullshit of the past. And now the social sciences, this really started, Enlightenment began, that movement, if you will, was the foundation for it. And it just became in the 1800s, you know, added it, and that's probably where you can see where managerialism starts. And managerialism has been embraced by all the social sciences. So right then and there, there's a problem with the fundamental premises of the social sciences from the beginning, or their trajectory. Because, you know, when I keep on going, okay, economics. Can we just please go back to Adam Smith? The Invisible Hand versus Bernard Mandeville. Fable of bees, and it doesn't matter if the jobs that you're producing are, you know, prostitutes producing, you know, economic activity, as do drug lords and drug pushers and drug consumers, and all of these dysfunctional things in society. And I mean, you know, in the United States, gambling is just out of control. The casinos, that we should have a casino in Washington. Okay, it's, I guess technically it's in Maryland. I don't think it's Washington proper, but that's just a matter of zip codes and semantics. I was horrified. Shows you how, you know, far this city has fallen. Washington was built with one purpose in mind: to house and be the siege, the headquarters of the American government. And all of the other industries that have been produced in the city are derivatives off of that. And making money to the injection of resources that have been coming into this city, New York, and the big capitals to the detriment of the urban areas. So, you know, class is not just about accumulating wealth and living the good life and urban luxury living. It's about setting an example for your communities, and that does entail, you know, sure, a nice house with a nice garden that you walk in and it's not a fallen pit like the place that I'm living in right now. I mean, this is a perfect example of white trash. I mean, there's well, the men and the women that have been living in here. The only decent person who had class was the poor Black man who was living here on welfare. Now, I think he was I think it was a blessing in disguise. He had a mild stroke and, you know, of course, moved out and has gone to some sort of assisted living. So I think that's better for him with everything that's going on since the shutdown. So you know, as I say, I think it was a blessing in this. But he was the only person with any kind of class in this place. Why? Because he was a decent, honorable man, polite, broken by, I mean, his mother and sisters, real piece of work. We'll see. Yeah, and they've got, you know, high power positions in the government here. I think probably Washington local government. I mean, everybody says high power positions. That's all relative to everybody. But you know, this guy, he's the typical, you know, Machiavellian libertine on the left, who was a charity lawyer. Foster care system. I mean, he's retired now, but what went on with his cases? Because he is, you know, a con artist. The place is just falling apart. The reason why he wants to get me thrown out living on the street is, like everybody else, I threaten, you know, his money influx that's making, you know, giving him enough money to sit around doing nothing. Except I'm such this intellect, and I was a lawyer and an actor, and that made me a good lawyer. And I mean, he's got books all over the place, but it, you know, typical. So you can have the fancy houses with, you know, immaculate with books all over the place, and you look like an intellect, or the same going on with the white trash these days. But it doesn't make them any more knowledgeable or have any more class. So America's strange breed. Two persistent problems have rumbled through our democratic past. One we can trace back to Franklin and Jefferson and their longing to dismiss class by touting exceptional features of the American landscape, which are deemed productive of an exceptional society. Yeah, we have a beautiful landscape, or we did. Trashed a lot of it, just like everybody else. That's another thing. Class. Robber barons of the Gilded Age. That's not class. That's nouveau riche. Gimme, 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 greed, greed, greed. Let me exploit, let me exploit, let me exploit. People who do that do not have class. Real class is about how you treat people and what you do with your life. And that can be being a simple homemaker and raising your children, dedicating then your life to your family and your grandchildren, and you have been an extremely productive member of society. much more productive than almost anybody in Washington. Or you can be a manual laborer, live a good, honest life, take care of your family, raise children to be productive members of society, and contribute to the society to the best of their abilities and their talents. You do that, you have class. And you're a hell of a lot more productive member of society than all the frickin' PhDs and MBAs here in Washington who never graduated from kindergarten, and all the ones in the Ivy League colleges, and the prep schools who are putting them through the grapple up the ladder of success bandwagon. I mean, everybody should take a look at how Foxcroft canceled me and all the alumni for all of the work that I'm doing, just like everybody else in Washington, just like the people at the IMF. Anytime I try and talk to somebody, they just change the subject, or I gotta go, and run away. Because they know if we actually get into a dialogue, they're gonna, I'm gonna leave them tongue-tied, and they're gonna have no wiggle room. So ignore her till she goes away, cancel her, shut her up. Because she's not gonna get in bed with the alt-right or the alt-left. So nobody likes me. Okay. The founders insisted that the majestic continent would magically solve the demographic dilemma. Everything's by magic. By reducing overpopulated and flattening, by reducing overpopulation and flattening out the class structure. Well, reducing overpopulation is send us your huddled masses. I mean, how much did the population grow? So, granted, the founding fathers did not realize what everything would go on in the Industrial Revolution or the gold rush. So, you know, you got to give them a free pass there. They were not, couldn't foretell the future. However, see, we deviated from the intentions of the founding fathers there. In addition to this environmental solution, a larger, extremely useful myth arose that America gave a voice to all of its people, that every citizen could exercise genuine influence over the government. We should note that this myth was always qualified because it was accepted that some citizens were more worthy than others, especially those whose stake in society came from property ownership. Okay, every citizen in society, in a democracy, I mean, that's anarchy. Within, you know, that's why they came up with the system of representation and a representative, you know, Congress, Senate, House of Lords, I forget what they called it, the Roman times. But that's why this system of representation and an elected official came to pass. I mean, even the feudal system was built up by under a system of representation of the feudal lords within the kingdom, and that's House of Lords. And there was brought the discussion of the different interests of the different regions of the kingdom. And, you know, if you don't have representatives who understand what are going on, have a freaking brain, or understand the principles of a democracy, or are there to represent their constituency instead just to cash in, of course, your system's not going to work. But you cannot have, okay, everybody's gonna vote on every little single thing that happens in the community. I mean, it is just, when you can do that. And even within a family unit, that's not always a possibility. That's what parents are for. So, as I say, there's a lot of just biases from academia. So the British colonial imprint was never really erased either. Of course not. And within the Asian communities, their influences have never been erased, as within the African Americans, the Latinos, any of the different populations coming in, they are still, there's still an identity with their origins from the society that they came from, and everything that society. And of course, with the British at the time, most everybody was British. You did Northern European, and then the Black Africans were brought in mainly, and that was mainly in the South for the plantations. You didn't really have that structure in the North because you didn't have the climate to be producing these plantations of tobacco and cotton for the luxury items going to the ruling elite in the United States and to Europe. Now, tobacco, I don't know if anybody sees a parallel there with marijuana or cocaine, but it was a precursor. It's the drug, if you will, in that is lithium. And why it helps calm you down, and it's addictive, really. I mean, I've found that I smoked cigarettes back in the 80s, and I'm smoking cigarettes again, and it's it's all the stress I've been in here in Washington. I mean, everywhere I work, everywhere I live is just infected with bullies and chaos who want to maintain that status quo because it gives them the power over others. And this is why Washington, I can attest, it is overflowing with domestic violent extremists who, like with Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake, and all of the other, precursors to a revolution, want to maintain their power and privilege, which is unjust towards the lower classes, and why we've trickled down, just produced the income inequality, and are getting pissed off. See, it's about, as I say, class. If we had a ruling class who had real class, then you wouldn't have them wasting, on spas, on beauty products, on partying, on restaurants, on jet setting, on keeping up with the Joneses, and go on shopping and buying and buying and buying and buying things that they don't need and really don't want, but they're so narcissistic and empty inside. They just need to keep on consuming to show everybody how important they are. It's not class. So, there we go. Let's see. The yeoman was a British class, reflecting the well-established English practice of equating moral worth to cultivation of the soil. Yes, and again, the North and South, it wasn't, the Civil War wasn't about slavery, it was dominance of the industrial North over the agrarian South. And the demographics of this country have changed because now but it's still industrial versus agrarian. And there is something to be said about the moral authority of an agrarian farmer and someone who's cultivating the land in an in a sustainable level, to all the urbanites who managerialism, get us money, give us money so we can spend. We get GDP up, then we con the nation and the world into believing that we're this great economic success because our GDP goes up, our stock markets go up. Well, of course, we keep on injecting more and more money. This is what I was thinking about this morning. I'm going to do another presentation on that. Your supply and demand, getting back to basic economics. You keep on increasing your supply, more and more luxury products, and keep on, so you increase your demand of that group of people. But everything gets injected in for them, and you just keep on producing more and more money supply. Going off the gold standard in the 1970s. I'm sure kids these days think that was like done in antiquity. No, and that's part of, because that's when we had the move towards the high risk, high yield mentality, and that was a move by the Fourth Reichers, the Koch brothers, the alt-right, because if you get that injection, more and more money into, and most of the justification for going off the gold standard was that you do have commerce that's producing wealth, grains, factories, different things. And that's another wealth that you can add. So as I say, this would be a lengthy debate between probably the top economists of the country and world to really go and dig deep down into all of that. And as I say that, you'd have to go back to the 70s and really take in the financial markets, the banking system, commerce. I mean, there'd be a lot of statistics to put together, but I'm sure it's a hypothesis, as I say, at this point. But all of the dots are there when I'm looking around. It just all needs to be connected. But when I get this feeling of, oh no, it's there. Yeah. When it keeps on going, and believe me, I get this all the time. It can be about people. It can be about all sorts of different things. Yeah, this nagging feeling. I mean, when we're talking about child abuse, that's when it really upsets me. Particularly when I can't do anything about it at the moment. This is the type of thing, like get me some students who want to do thesis work, dissertation work, and we can go to town. But it's there. So this is again this managerial. You can tell here, this author, she's a managerialist urbanite, because she, as too many of them out there, everybody says, oh, we need an intersectional approach. Well, that's what I've done for the past 15 years, but nobody likes what the results have shown. So they want to shut me up. because it will rain on their little managerialism parade and feminism parade. This is Nancy Eisenberg. So feminist, and I mean, I'm almost, I would say 90% sure that's a Jewish name. Sometime, but yeah, I would pretty much put more money on that one. So again, these are the different, she's from the two of the different factions that want to grapple up the ladder of success in the United States in academia and managerialism. So conflict of interest that you know, she would be interested in what I've been looking at, and like the others, because the feminists are all over the place, but also the Jewish community. I mean, there are a lot of Jewish people who have been cashing in for the past 40 years. Harvey Eisenberg, there's Blankfeld, CEO of Goldman Sachs. I think Larry Summers is Jewish, not positive. But I mean, I can pull them out and pull them out and pull them out. So they've been complicit to the Fourth Reich. We should take a little look back at the Third Reich and the animosity to the Jewish community, because Anne Sinclair, Jewish as well, and it was her grandfather was the art dealer. He made his fortune as a art from Picasso's work. Now, I've always thought the modern art of that time, I mean, I like a lot of it, but that it should be commanding these huge, you know, these great fortunes. See, I do a lot of my own artwork, and you know, I'll sit there and I'll go to the museums, the classics, you know, you go, I don't know, particularly it's in, well, I love, for example, I love going to churches in England. Well, I say a little prayer for God, to God, but it's to look at the architecture and the artwork. And it's spectacular, the museums as well. And I'm talking, you know, Rembrandt, Da Vinci, I mean, the study of light and the technique is so the modern art era. I'm like, I remember in Bogota one it was a field trip with my kid's school, and this kid's what, 7, 6, 7, 8 or something, and he's looking, they were drawing Miro, Juan Miro, the Spanish, and he looked, he said, I can do that. And I have to say, I look at a lot of artwork that is you know, high priced. I'm like, I can do that. That's ridiculous. So for, you know, as I say, people need to start looking at our mistakes of our past and our ancestors and stop repeating them. For their part, 19th century Americans did everything possible to replicate class station through marriage, kinship, pedigree, and lineage. Yes, because as I'm showing with going into the different lineage and domestic abuse and the traditions, the mental health care problems, the drug addiction problems, all of those problems are not because of somebody's DNA. Those are from socialization and the family dynamics and the dynamics within the community. well, everybody here is enough to drive anybody else's body. Oh, I mean, I would love to bring a lot of little ladies on now and put them here in this situation for a year and a half with these guys. Oh, they'd be screaming bloody murder by now. Instead of me, okay, I'm just going to take my laptop everywhere I go and I'm going to film you crazies. And hopefully I'll get a voice before I get thrown out on the streets. And because this is typical. What's going on in this house, typical. Institute for Capacity Development, the crazies over there, the people who work in the IMF, no different than these guys. Absolutely no different. This guy's a dishwasher. No more less educated or ignorant than anybody that I knew at the IMF or up on Capitol Hill or a lot of the people that I've been working with in the rest, well, in the management. Even a lot of the the hostesses were managers before, but they don't want to work with those crazies and the crazy owners anymore. It's Washington is Berlin. Money with Liz Minnelli. And we are headed towards another world war. And the development community here should be freaking ashamed of themselves and held to account. The think tanks, the IMF, the World Bank, the UN. I just saw a documentary on, I think it was on Netflix, about COVID, origins of COVID. Now, that was in June of 2020, some wacko podcast guys. And most of what they were saying were pretty damn wacko. But they brought up this thing about the, there were patents. They talk about the money at the American money into the Wuhan laboratory, patents that there were like 16 different patents. There was all, I don't know, 16, but there was a whole slew of patents that were registered in the United States for COVID. So if they're patents, this is a laboratory, somebody who's producing it in the laboratory. So if the strains that are out there are the same ones that there are patents for, that's pretty much of a smoking gun that these came from the laboratory. Proof. I mean, enough proof for the courts. Now the question then becomes, was it getting out into the public an accident, or was it on purpose? Or was it a purposeful accident? Because apparently substandard conditions in the laboratory. Maybe it was like, oh, we put in substandard conditions and an accident will happen. Of course it will. There, it's one of these oops, when you really meant the oops. And then the question becomes also who holds those patents? And I'm not just talking about the front corporation. You dig deeper, because I don't think this guy was gonna register under his name. Now, these guys were speculating that it was Bill Gates. That's perfectly possible. Bill Gates is a eugenics. And if you look at the trajectory of Microsoft, this was a pretty good move with the Fourth Reichers. I mean, I can get into that at length. So yeah, they could talk about eugenics here. Well, the Confederacy was the high mark, the most overt manifestation, like with Scarlett O'Hara. But see, my lineage goes back to the early colonies, Massachusetts Bay, but then there's also the Confederates. And that's when I was looking into it, I think it would have been my great-grandfather, my father's side, that would have come down from Connecticut, I'm pretty sure it was, to Alabama, and you had a lot of the Wilcoxes coming down there. Now that was it because they were, you know, not happy with the industrialism? What was it that propelled this move is my question at this point. But I am a Southern belle in that sense, and I was born in New Orleans, and both my parents are, and my father was Confederate all the way. He didn't like the Yankees at all. So as I say, it's interesting to look at that period and with the families, and they were prolific letter writers, particularly the women. And you can get a whole lot of those letters and look into the archives. I'm sure there's a lot of information of what was going on in terms of people within these communities. While the Confederacy was the high mark, the most overt manifestation of rule aristocratic pretense and an open embrace of society's needs to have an ruling elite over the lower classes. Well, yeah, you do. I mean, we see right now what's happened with the American ruling elite and how it's, oh my Lord, I walk down the street, or even when I was working at Kalari, and these women, I mean, I was like, no, I mean, not like my mother. Yeah, yes. You gotta go a suit to go to a New Orleans country club for lunch. But don't come in and don't walk around the streets like you're working in the red light district and selling your wares. I mean, girls, this is not the red light district. These are girls walking around and with things hanging out all over the place. So a little decorum, you can be sexy and dress. You don't have to look like a frump. And an old dyke. I'm sorry, I have enough gay friends to be able to use those words, because they even call, oh God, that's a screaming faggot. And see, within the LGBT community, well, you got a whole bunch of different factions there. And you know, that I have lesbian friends as well. That doesn't bother me, but the dyke is the equivalent to the drama queen faggot. I mean, their drama is in a little different mode, but yeah. So it's but see, the unifying, the common denominator with all of these different factions is they want to bully others and have their group as the superior group, the ruling elite group, and tell everybody else how they should live. And that's exactly what all of these different groups are doing. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And people are getting more and more and more pissed off. I mean, Danabash, particularly. The timing. I mean, like my sisters, when they call, or anybody who tells me what I should be doing, I need to do this, I need to do that at gym here. I need to do this, I need to do that. I'm like, wait a second, you even admit you read nothing that I have out there. You know nothing about what I'm doing. You know nothing about my life. Yet you're going to give me advice on what I should be doing. You need to concentrate a little bit more on your own little garden, because it's really screwed up. Mine's screwed up, but it wasn't me who screwed it up. Everybody around me, believe me. And anybody wants to get into discussion on that, fine. Just don't come and scream at me and tell me I'm crazy and I'm stupid and I'm just an arrogant, you know, rich white woman. No, I will not talk to anybody like that. That's why I don't talk to anybody in DC. And I mean, it is getting worse and worse with the Black women. Safeway. I mean, I'm going to be, I want some questions, these corporations. And I know these places are being mismanaged. It's all corporate mismanagement. So the employees are disgruntled, but instead of getting together and addressing the management problems and their own problems in their lives, no, they turn around and be bitches to their targeted group. With the Black women, oh God, rich white bitch. I mean, they stuck a sign on my face like that. And I'm the scapegoat for all of the rich white bitches in Northwest. I mean, really, when all of these little ladies lose their meal tickets and can no longer go shopping and hanging out at the country club and they're jet setting, I am going to have no sympathy. None whatsoever. The next century ushered in the disturbing imperatives of eugenics. Of course, because it was a backlash to the Blacks and Browns you know, coming in. And even we had the, you know, undesirable potato people from Ireland and the huddled masses, the poor stricken, who were just brought in to exploit and not brought in to integrate. Thus, not only did Americans abandon their desire for class distinctions, they repeatedly reinvented class distinctions. I mean, the Obamas are a perfect example. No, the Blacks who are gonna get into positions of power. What did Michelle and Barack Obama do about the new Jim Crow while they were in power? Nothing. They sold out their constituency, just as Trump sold out his constituency, because the Democrats, as much as the Republicans, they're not about the people. They're about their pockets and power and glory. I'm going too long on this one. I'll do it another. I'll do tomorrow the other part, which is the introduction, which will bring us up to speed. The introduction of this book. Well, it's preface. It was a paperback edition, so I think it had been published earlier, but it was 2016 that this was published. So this, you know, really is in the aftermath of the Trump, and she gets into a lot of the political stuff from there. But so as I say, I don't want to make this too long, otherwise I'd be here for probably 3-hour one. Once the government of the United States began portraying itself as a leader of the free world, the longing for a more regal head of state was advanced. Yes, we establish ourselves as a leader of the free world in the aftermath of World War II, when Europe had self-destructed and Asia had self-destructed, or Japan, and then brought China I'm not sure. I mean, I'm much less familiar with, you know, all of the different with Asian history than I am with Western history. But same things going on. Same things going on at the same time as it is, you know. So we became later, you know, leaders, liberators, and leaders of the free world. And we did for a while. I mean, Americans were considered by Europeans, you know, they're great saviors, and they loved Americans. Not at all anymore. They denigrate us. They think we're crass, you know, low lives, trash, white trash. And they are the superior. I mean, oh Lord, do I get that with the French? I mean, I get it. The French, the British, and the Spanish all has a little bit different flavor, if you will. You know, like ice creams, but it's all ice cream at the end. Same difference. You know, and a lot of it, particularly, well, the British, see, this was my history teacher, and she knew about my family tree, including John Dickinson and John Paul Jones. So that was like a historical, you know, and she hated me for something that my ancestors had done. So that was, I guess, kind of personal in that thing. But like with the Spanish and the French particularly, you know, put on airs, the diplomatic corps, I get this all the time, but even the corporate world, of superiority of French culture, French cuisine, French art, French music. Same difference with the Spaniards. It's all, you know, these, and it's really from the women. They're you know, their culture is superior to everybody else. And it's not a question of superior. And in fact, it was the opulence of those periods in Europe. Yes, I mean, produce a magnificent architecture. I mean, modern architecture is nowhere close. I mean, most of this stuff, I'm like, oh God. Can we build more huge glass boxes to stick everybody in? Now, anytime I've been looking at some stuff as well. I've got some ideas for developing quarries, but I saw some really cool stuff to do there. So this is how I amuse myself and keep my mind sane with all these wackos running around all over the place. So for solar, I mean, I'm really into glass, but these huge, and it goes the same with low-income housing. I've seen this all over the place. I saw it in the United States. Europe did the same thing. Spain did the same thing. You know, just stick them in a box. No, that's a Band-Aid, and it produced a very impersonal breakdown in the community of those living in those places. So, you know, as I say, we got to start looking back and stop saying how great we were, but saying, oh shit, we did some really messed up things. We better get our shit together. Let's see. The Democrats swooned over Kennedy's Camelot, and Republicans ennobled the Hollywood court of Reagan. Yeah, Camelot, and the Kennedy's Camelot was the Kerry Cuomo, well, Kerry Kennedy and Governor Andrew Cuomo. That was supposed to be the Camelot. And of course, we saw that. I mean, I'm sorry. Kerry Kennedy is a real piece of work, just like her mother. And I'm sure her daughters are following the same trajectory as their mother. They're in the business. I mean, one is with the Sustainable Development Goals. Everybody who's in that business. I mean, it's once again a question of class. It's just a branding campaign with no substance, and in fact, full of total propaganda and BS. I have demonstrated ad nauseum. I even contacted the architect of the trickle down, David Stockman, several times. Yeah, the problem with the trickle down is that your ruling elite in the past 40 years has just become narcissistic, and even psychopathic, Lang and Campbell. And look at all of the evidence. Document the rise of the narcissism epidemic, which I saw. And I saw at its birth at Foxcroft and amongst the yuppies and preppies in the 1980s. And it disgusted me as much as it disgusts me now. Although I was a little princess in a pea. I didn't, in my 20s. That's what you want these 20-year-old kids to lead the world. No, they're trying to figure out what the world is about. 50, 60, 70-year-olds to get their crap together and start fixing all of the things that they've been involved in. Because either they get busy and start fixing it, or they can go with their little white collar friends for a little stint and want to sit around doing nothing but chewing the fat with all of their intellectual friends. Got some nice facilities that the prison system has created in the United States. And we need to drain those things of all of the poor Black people in there and all the poor innocent people in there. And there'll be plenty of room. See, it's not difficult to clean up this city or de-escalate the violence, but it is the bad faith of everybody. And I've gone top to bottom and across the board. Capitol Hill Police, I've asked them for support. General Milley, asked him for support. Now, I solicited Christopher Wray and Attorney General Garland. I mean, those are the two who should be mobilizing the FBI and the Justice Department to, get busy, get to work. There's a lot of investigations that need to be done. There are a lot of people who need to be brought to the courts to explain what they've been involved in. And if you do not do that, that's what class is about. Caring about your community and your country and your family and the planet. I mean, when I get into the British royal family, Prince Philip's mother, Princess Alice of Greece. I'm like, well, Princess Alice and our lives are pretty similar. I'm just not going to start a convent. I live like a nun, but that's another issue. But I'm not going to start a convent. It's all gotta, but as I say with Princess Alice, she was the only person of the Greek royals that were in Greece when the bombs are falling and working for her people. I mean, everybody, oh, she's so strange. Oh, she's so strange. No, if you look at that poor woman's life, but what happened with her was the parallel with my story, it's like Princess Alice she's gone now. You want to come down? We can have a little powwow about how crazy these people are, because she was diagnosed with schizophrenia late in life. I mean, it's ridiculous that happened with schizophrenia. I mean, it was total Britney Spears montage. And Freud signed off on it. And her husband, that was after her husband had been involved in the losing the the Greek Turkish war, and his colleagues were they were executed. So he wasn't executed. He was, you know, set in exile. They lived outside of Paris in Saint Cloud, I believe. And beautiful neighborhood. I mean, I looked at some places in Saint Cloud, but we ended up in the center. And because it is the suburbs. I mean, my kids were babies at the time, and so anyway, that's when, and I'm sure he became extremely abusive, and had a how shall I say, had a crisis, because he does kind of abandon his family after that. I mean, Prince Philip is abandoned. The mother sent to a psychiatric facility. Prince Philip, the older sisters, I think by this time maybe they're old enough, but poor Prince Philip loses his mother, is sent off to boarding schools and shuffled around for vacations. And really, you know, is a poor prince, and he's lost his mother. His father's abandoned the family, and went off to Monte Carlo. And so, you know, this of course had an effect on Prince Philip. Queen Elizabeth, also her upbringing, as did Queen Victoria's. All of this has an effect on these people's upbringings. But his, you know, my point being, Princess Alice, who was the real queen? Or maybe I'll pose that in a different fashion. Was Princess Alice not just as much as a queen to her people of Greece as Elizabeth II was in becoming, you know, an anointed queen? I mean, and she's just perpetuated the Victoria era in England and Greece. Same, you know, problems as Italy, as Spain, and all of Southern Europe for the same reasons. And a lot of that is the desire to maintain the corruption and the stratified hierarchy of inequality between the haves and the have-nots. And let's just change the names of the players. Baltasar's son, he's from a very poor family in Extremadura. What's he doing now? No, get up on a podium. He's going to be looking at charges of fraud for his NGO and his law firm. Well, fraud doesn't come in with his law firm, but it comes into, why are all of you people in Spain covering up for all of this? Because I've not, you know, I started with Amnesty International. Spain is in there. Women's Link Worldwide is in there. Mujeres Separadas y Divorciadas. I mean, I have as many names of the human rights and domestic violence and feminist communities in Europe as I do in the United States. But nobody will take any action because the government officials, I mean, this would just start a domino effect of cleaning everything up. And a lot of their little buddies will fall. Like we see with the Trump. That's another protection racket. It's just all get one protection racket into power or another protection racket into power. And that's why it's continual conflict. Whereas instead of class being about, oh, let me become the new one with the $1 million home and the Ferrari, or, you know, the yachts and the boats and airplanes and now spaceships, would the world be damned? So I say, that's not classy. That's predatory. That's white trash. That's brown trash. That's black trash. That's yellow trash. Red trash. Indians, I don't see too many here, but or green trash. If any of the little green men are colluding with our white trash, but it's certainly not glass. Oh yeah, here. American democracy has never accorded all the people a meaningful voice. The masses have been given symbols instead, and they are often empty symbols. Nation states traditionally relied on the fiction that a head of state can represent the body of the people and stand in as their proxy. In the American version, the president must appeal broadly to shared values that mask the existence of deep class division. Again, let's define what she means by class division. See, I mean, if I was up on a podium in a debate with any of these people, and you could put me on any podium with any of the different social sciences, no notes, no nothing. I mean, okay, if I can quote them, I'm a little bit better off and have some preparation, but you can put me cold up there with any single one of them, and I could chew them up and spit them out, even in front of a public. I mean, I think I might need a little Diet Coca-Cola with the caffeine to get through it, but which helps my my blood pressure stay up. But or maybe they'd get me so pissed off that I'd forget the crowd and keep my blood pressure up. Even when this strategy works, though, unity comes at the price of perpetuating ideological deception. George Washington and Franklin Roosevelt were called fathers of the country and are now treated as the kindly patriarchs of yore. Andrew Jackson and Teddy Roosevelt descended to us as brash, tough-talking warriors. Yeah, and why did Trump win? Because he sounded like a tough warrior. Brash, tough talking. I mean, I do that all the time, but I know how to do it with a touch of class. I mean, this is where also women come in to, you can be very brash and tough talking if, let's just reword that. If you are dealing with people who understand the language, it's going to be the English language, French language, or Spanish language, and not just understand, but actually listen to what you're saying. Because if whatever you say and the little subliminal tough talking threats, like, in interest of transparency, I just need to tell you that I am taking everybody to the international courts, and I am examining everything here under international conventions. So I just wanted to let you know before we start our meeting, our interview, that that's what I'm doing. Now, that is different then particularly, in the mediation process, you throw yourself into the face of a judge. This one was a judge, or something like that. You little so-and-so, I'm going to be hauling your ass to the international courts. The message is the same. It's just the delivery is different. Now, same thing with Gita Ravindra, mediator at the IMF. I always notify these people that I will be taking everybody to the international courts, that I am headed there. They laugh in my face. These are IMF ombudsman ethics people. They're the oversight function of the IMF. Laugh in my face. And part of it is they live on another planet. And all of these ombudsmen, mediators, Alicia Shepard, NPR's ombudsman, she's in the pot. Contacted her in 2010. She's the cousin of a friend of my mother's. Well, she did when I had prepared a synopsis. This is at the very beginning. This is, I got here in 2009, February. They said this is 2010. I remember, I think it was in the winter or fall. Just sat on it, Well, all she said, she sounded like my frickin' mother. You've said domestic violence, I think, here like 2 or 3 times. She would look at the semantics of what I had written, like some freaking English teacher, rather than the content. I mean, I get this all the time, all the time. My mom was always notorious for that. And it's a perfect tactic of how these ladies, can conveniently just ignore any content that they don't like, and then they go to you on little points. I mean, sometimes I'm like, excuse me, you're having problems with my grammar. What you're suggesting either way is grammatically correct. It's just a little different way of expressing. But if you had paid attention in English school, you would know that you haven't changed. This is just one of your little tactics to deviate attention away from the issue. I can't catch them on like that. Why? Because I know English grammar extremely well, and how to express myself orally and in writing, which is not something that is happening with the people that are getting out of these prep schools and Ivy League schools, much less below. And then everybody, because our public schools are a mess, oh no, let's just start charter schools and produce a group of narcissists who've been educated to believe that they're going to do great things, but they come from such messed up homes that they never do great things. And also, what are great things? Oh, they're going to become a doctor. They're going to become a lawyer. They're going to become rich. That's what these kids are being told, and doing great things. I mean, I lived with a family. This was after the Fort Totten house. Oh my God. Immigrant family, 2 bedrooms. I mean, I was 1 foot away from being on the street. Barely made it through, but did. And I mean, the abuse of those kids, horrible. And then they're sending them to charter schools. so that they can get better opportunities in life. The eldest, that kid's going to end up shooting up, one of those little school shooters. Nothing I could do. Nothing. Foster care is such a mess. Any situation that they were in and that they are still in is better than what I would have sent them into. Oh, there's quite a few people I would have called the IMF people. But also, oh God, I can imagine the backlash on that from HR and the entire IMF. Instead of, oh my Lord, lady. No, they'd be pissed off that I had exposed their respectable class, people who have grappled up the ladder of success and become part of the ruling class of the of Washington. Whether they're citizens or not, they're the ones who are directing our government with all their cacophony. The immigrants, all of these PhDs and MBAs who never graduated from kindergarten, who have come here, being brought here by the IMF, World Bank, and we see this Ahmed Massoud. See, when they retire from their little con job at the IMF and the World Bank. This is a World Bank group. There's a whole lot of people. Then they're giving, in retirement, they're giving a cushy little job over at all the think tanks. Same thing happens with the presidents, all of the high level posts. And then they hang out here, and their kids, they've gone to the prep schools, the Ivy League schools on taxpayers' money because they have tuition reimbursement, are now becoming integrated into the new American ruling elite, which is led, which is the Fourth Reichers. And I'm, when I say Fourth Reichers, I'm talking about the alt-right, who are intentionally doing it, but I'm also talking about the alt-left, who are part of the rise of the Fourth Reich by default, by omission of action. And this is exactly why, when we get back into going off the gold standards, getting into from the 1970s on this trajectory, high risk, high yield, injection of money into the think tanks, academia, to produce the cacophony. And this is, it wasn't planned. One hell of a great coincidence. It was planned. If you look at all of the different, events and social trajectories that have been done since the 1960s in the United States and gone global, it's the exact as you saw in the rise of the Third Reich. And these Nazis came over just like Rianne Eisler. People say, oh, you sound like Rianne Eisler when you talk. I'm like, yes, I do. I know I do. But Rianne Eisler, she has a whole slew of books. She's in academia. So it's just blah, 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 blah. She's a lawyer. Why isn't she helping me to submit all of this? Get on with it. She was given a speech in 2015 about her mother's custody conference, the same time that I was. No, but everybody is just, that's what frustrated me at that conference. I was like, oh, great, okay. Just like everybody in Washington, just get together to schmooze and cruise and discuss. That's not class. That's boring and pimping around. American democracy has never afforded all the people a meaningful voice. No, I already went through that. Cowboy symbols stand tall in the saddle and defend the national honor against an evil empire, as Reagan did so effectively. I mean, yeah, that was all showmanship. There's a great book. I think it was Glenn Greenwald, maybe mistaken. Glenn Greenwald follows the rise of Reagan with that whole cowboy image. John Wayne, who was a draft dodger. I mean, in a roundabout way, but he wasn't going putting his ass on the line in any fight. We're going to make movies. More recently, the American people were witness to a president dressed in a pilot jumpsuit for the dramatic effect landing on an aircraft carrier. It's all become, a Hollywood show. That, of course, was George W. Bush. And he prematurely proclaimed an end to combat operations in Iraq. I mean, my only defense in the past 40 years with the Europeans about my presidents is take a look at you guys, and they shut right up because they're like, oh yeah, is anybody waking up and smelling the coffee? No. They all just complain about their presidents as much as everybody does in this country, but nobody wants to do anything about it. Left out of our collective memory, meanwhile, are corporate puppet presidents such as William McKinley, who was in the pocket of Big Steel and a host of manufacturing interests. All of the presidents since Jimmy Carter lost, Reagan, everybody since then, they've been in the pockets of Wall Street and industrial, and now it's been added by high tech. Techie gurus. That's where your money flow's going. I mean, what's his name? Ken Molman? I forget. He was the head of the Libertarian Party. He was love to know what happened there with the one who stepped down the chair, because he was acting chair. Now they have a new one. I forget if it's a woman. Which I was like, oh great. I love Dave Chappelle. Talking about the Women's March. Oh no, when the whole Dave Chappelle thing came out, of course I watched the Netflix. And he is funny. He is funny. He's crass. He's extremely crass. But he pulls it off. He was going on about the Women's March movement and the vulgar little hats that they put on their heads. And he said, what you need is a man at your leadership. And I was like, Dave Chappelle, you hit it on the nail. You hit it on the nail. Now, I think like a man. I really do. I prefer talking with men. If I got a beef with somebody, okay, I don't go up and punch him in the face physically. I say, okay, want to play Machiavellian games with me? We'll play. And I'll disempower you and run you out of town. But as I say, this is where, women, the ruling elite women and their role in what they're supposed to be doing instead of hanging out in country clubs or conference rooms looking for a new, affair, is overseeing what's going on in the community and saying, oh, no. And if you live in a small town, that may just be your block or your neighborhood, or if you're a stay-at-home mom, school district, neighborhood, all of that. See something, say something. And if you are part of the ruling elite in Washington or even New York or any of the capitals and the urban centers, your arena of observation becomes much larger, as do your responsibilities. And this is where, you know, it is necessary. I mean, you saw that with, and that's not Karl Marx communism, you saw that with China communism and Russia communism. A classless society is not a good social order or economic or political. You do want to have a certain, you know, upper class, ruling class, middle class, and you're going to always have a lower class. But you want to make sure that you minimize your lower class, maximize your middle class, and have a ruling elite that is, you know, proportionate, but, you know, not there to exploit everybody down the food chain, but rather to present an example of how one lives within the family. I mean, Prince William and Catherine, you know, they're setting a very good example that there is a trajectory there. Now, this whole thing about skipping Prince Charles, no. I mean, Prince Charles has gotten a bad rap. And I mean, he's worked his, that poor man, you know, his schooling, everything was to prepare him to be king. Now, if his mother had that same preparation, I mean, because I think her personality, her sister was a real party girl. And I think if his mother had that same preparation, then her reign would have been very different. But also she came in as a child and bullied and manipulated by Winston Churchill and others around her, and really didn't take charge and implement any kind of reform that England needed or Britain needed. Prince Charles does have that background. William has been, you know, educated. This was part of the problem, and this is, you know, with the American ruling elite. I'm like, I don't care if you gone to an Ivy League school, you still are as ignorant and stupid as the rednecks out in Bubbleville. So all this education is not doing any good. And within the ruling European ruling elite and queens and royalty, these people were educated. These women were educated. It's really, I think, you know, with Queen Victoria particularly, you see, I mean, dumb bimbo, you talk about your dumb spoiled bimbo. And really spoiled with temper tantrums and the whole 9 yards, a hoarder. Of course, you had hysteria that came to mode in the Victorian era. And so it's just a repeat. It's been modernized, but it's the same ice cream. Because now we got a couple little different flavors. And if they really want a paradigm shift, the development community says that we need, with family at the center, William and Catherine are providing a good example. But look, Prince Charles was in an arranged marriage. Prince Andrew was in an arranged marriage. I saw something about him maybe getting back together with Fergie, that she's been very supportive during the COVID, and I'm sure his ordeal, and I'm glad to hear that. I'd like to hear Fergie out on a stage with me and in front of a microphone, telling these little ladies a thing or two. Virginia Giuffre and her lawyers, as well as the Cuomo case, the ones who are, I've got a slew of them. Those little viperous bitches, I would just bet you if I start doing an investigation, these ladies are no different. Go to my report, Workplace Bullying in the IMF. Same type of viperous little bitches with the support of HR and the mediators and the ombudsman and who are supposed to check into all of this. There's a whole racket going on in there, a whole racket. And that's what I exposed when I was ousted from the IMF, Institute for Capacity Development, in the IMF. But I can't find any lawyers to go after anybody. The last one that I contacted, last ditch effort, was Brendan Sullivan. Twice I called them. I'm just waiting for these guys to start slapping a restraining order on me because I call them to confirm that they've received my correspondence. That's the state that it is right now. Anybody sees me coming, oh, don't let her serve us. Don't let her serve us. As I tell the other victims and activists, I said, oh God, I just sent off another letter. And I said, I send it, certified. I make sure it, I got the email stuff. Nobody's going to be able to say that they never delivered. And then I'll call up and confirm. And I'll tell them, I said, they have been served. Because we get that all the time with this malicious litigation. All of a sudden, pop, you've been served. You have no money. They blocked all of your money, but you got to come up with a lawyer. Pulled that one on Britney Spears. Poor girl. I hope with I saw the documentary as well on that this will bring attention, because what's happened to Britney happening all the time. My ex tried to do it with me. But as I say, because if I had been a young little kid, in my 20s, when I knew in my 20s, no. But I was an old lady by this time, and I knew what everybody was pulling. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure my ex would say I'm a witch and a mind reader. Because I always knew what was going on. I'm always like 10 steps ahead of them. Because I know what's going on in their minds. That's what happens when you get to be an old lady who's had children, who's had a husband, particularly when they wrote a lot of shit up that you need to clean up afterwards. So, oh God, one little bitch. FedEx. FedEx is on my radar as well. I mean, this little black girl walks up to me. She's talking to her colleague and having a conversation with her colleague when I'm in there, but she walks by him. He's kind of in front of me. She stands right in front of me and looks me right in the eye in the conversation, saying, age is just a number. I mean, I was just in there making a copy of actually this. I'll show it. Maybe she got jealous of what I had done. This I actually sent to, I was looking at, I did it with when I saw the Campania region of Italy. That's the copy I was making before I sent it off to Cuomo's mother. I'm working on another one on Bougainvillas, which is also from that region, which they kind of go together. Anyway, but I was like, I ignored it. I ignored it because it was just, to provoke me, to piss me off, which it did. But instead of getting into a shouting match with her or something like that, I just ignored it. I put her on the list. I'm like, okay, now FedEx, Safeway, FedEx, as well as the IMF, for empowering, and GW is on there, all of them, for, you know, hiring and empowering these bullies and these violent extremists and terrorist cells that are you know, working in this city. I mean, the transport, you know, basically DC government is under the control of the Blacks. And oh, do they love to dish it out to the rich white women, particularly. I mean, the rich white women dish it out to them, so they just dish it out back. And I keep on telling everybody, I mean, anybody who knows me, anybody, yes, I get angry sometimes, and I can be an irate person at customer service. And I think justifiably so, if anybody has gone through customer service these days. My favorite is the movie with Shirley MacLaine, and is it Michelle Pfeiffer, the other? I forget. Her husband dies, she gets the insurance, but instead of like 500,000 that she's supposed to get, there's a mistake, they said her 5 million. So she's trying, she really makes an effort to call them and contact them and say, you got, no way to talk to anybody. Press, I mean, it's great, the scene, because we all live through that. And we all go, just get me to a live person. My poor father, he said, all I want to do is talk to a live person. I said, we all do, Dad. You're driving us freaking crazy. So it was too funny. I was like, if I'd been the judge in that case, when that came back, I would have said, you know what, lady, you get to keep the 5 million. Maybe these people hire some customer service. If they have to start paying that out, their little mistakes and eating their little mistakes, they'll get their shit together. That's how I would handle it as a judge. I think there would be enough leeway in there. She made a good effort to pay you back, but so she cast a check. So anyway, you know, as I say, what was it? Brash, tough talking warrior. Yes, but with a little bit of class and subliminal messages. Which, I mean, it's incredible, because I send them out all the time and they go, whoosh. Why? Because people who I'm talking with have no class. They only know how to resolve conflict by screaming and yelling or stomping their feet until everybody gives them whatever they want. And why? They have to get into positions of power to keep control over people, because otherwise nobody would listen to them. But since they hold the purse strings, then everybody just shuts up. When presidential candidate Mitt Romney in 2012 responded to a heckler with the line, "Corporations are people, my friend," he inadvertently became the new McKinley. The 1% were his constituency, and wearing blue jeans did little to loosen his buttoned up image. Yeah, corporations are not people too. And that's when I heard that had come into a la mode in the United States in my absence, or my Rip Van Winkle siesta in Europe. I was like, no. I mean, you want to talk about a jurisprudence or a standard that's going to degrade the rights of your citizens? Pulling that bullshit. it'll do it almost by osmosis, and it has. So that bullshit needs to go out with bathwater. Power, whether social, economic, or merely symbolic, is rarely probed. Or if it is, it never becomes so urgent a national imperative as to require a across the board resolution. Simultaneously satisfying a moral imperative and pursuing a practical cause. Of course, that's not happening. That's what needs to happen. Everybody can tell you, go into the reports by the development community. It just is, it's, at this point, they got diarrhea of mouth. Because it's just repeat the propaganda. What we have to do, what we have to do. And then we come up with another acronym. And then we come up with another, counselor or coach or advisor, another managerial position that's going to help this cesspool of too many chefs spoil the soup. And you're going to add more chefs. We know, for instance, that Americans have forcibly resisted extending the right to vote. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, but because this obsession with the right to vote ensures democracy. This is how we determine whether we have a democratic system, is protecting the voters' rights to vote, or the citizens' rights to vote. That's because these people don't understand the first thing about what a democracy is or how it functions. So they just politically correct rhetoric between the Republicans as much as the Democrats. We got to defend the right to vote, defend the integrity of the voting. We don't have a lack of integrity of voting in our country and our systems because there's widespread fraud within the voting systems. As I say, you always are going to have mistakes. You're always, ask any statistician, there's always a margin of error. You want to reduce your margin of error and make sure that you have things. So you always find cases of mistakes or intentional malfeasance. The thing is, make sure that your checks and balances are enough that these mistakes are reduced to a minimum, that they are mistakes rather than malfeasance of anybody in there, because if it's malfeasance, they need to be gotten rid of. But we all make mistakes. You have a whole bureaucratic system. You will have, so that they can pull out cases is not proof of widespread fraud. Americans have always had the most, above reproach system in our voting. I think we will, I would have to go, but at least in my lifetime, and with reason. But the Democratic and Republican Party, which control the political machine in this country, if you're not a Democrat and you're not a Republican, and you're not within that, you're not going to get elected. Maybe some congressmen, a few, libertarians or something like that. But the country is controlled by this two-party system, which has got to go. We need some other different parties. And those two parties have just embraced the managerialism and injection of money, injection of money, injection of money, injection of money. I mean, how much was spent on the 2020 elections? I want a good accounting of that, because that's money, resources that could have gone to the urban areas to develop real jobs, something that actually produced some economic good for this country, instead of a bunch of entitled college grads who want to grapple up the ladder of success within the Republican or Democratic Party. Particularly, the Democratic Party was inundated with all of the different candidates that presented themselves. None of them, the only people who had any business up there was Elizabeth Warren and Buttigieg. It's more a joke. Oh, Bloomberg, I loved that one. So, this really, I think I'll leave it there. Oh, here, I'll just read the end of this chapter, and then I'll leave it there for today. And then I'll do tomorrow. I'll come back and this was the introduction, which really gets into, and I guess builds on stuff that I talked about here, her analysis of the 2016 election and what's going on in the parties and the different candidates. So to end, white trash is a central, if disturbing, thread in our national narrative. The very existence of such people, both in their visibility and invisibility, is proof that American society obsesses over the mutable labels we give to the neighbors we wish not to notice. They are not who we are, but they are who we are and have been a fundamental part of our history, whether we like it or not. Now, I mean, the reason, I knew this from the beginning. I mean, with my lawyers, that was my big beef. I told Belén Martín when she pulled this crap. And they started, preventing me all access to any of my property or assets or anything. I mean, how did they expect me to pay their legal fees if I can't access, if the courts keep on blocking all the access to my property? I mean, it's clearly these manipulations of the lawyers, my lawyer, are clearly, to oppress and denigrate and target their clients in hate crimes. I mean, this is a hate crime, and I will be bringing this all to the courts as a hate crime. Even though I'm not Black, even though I'm not brown, even though I'm not yellow, what was done to me in Spain by my lawyers was because I'm an American, a deposed trophy wife, and parasite on society. I mean, that's the misogyny amongst the lawyers. That's why I can't get any assistance from the lawyers, because I am a parasitic, deposed trophy wife who wants to rock their little boat and who just should get with the game and go out and find herself a new meal ticket. My mother tried that. I'll get into all of that with my book. But it was my lawyers, it was the judges, everybody. You defraud her of everything, you throw out on the street. And then, of course, if you won't give her a job, and I mean, I have discrimination lawsuits all over the place for the past 13 years against people in their hiring and promotional practices. Can't find a lawyer. But see, this way, people like Jim Reed, my sisters, everybody around me can, say you're a loser. See, you can't even do anything. You're just a parasite on society. You're useless. You're worthless. You should just go out and do us all a favor and commit suicide. Then you don't need to be housed. You don't need to be fed. I mean, I get it all the time from Jim. I'm a piece of trash and I can't even go out and get a minimum wage job, and here I am unemployed. Yet I'm sitting on lawsuits for billions of dollars of lost income in Spain that nobody will go after, sitting on lawsuits against every landlord that I've had since I've been back, and every employer that I've had since I've been back, and everywhere I've applied for a job and not even given an interview. And that's just my personal life, trying to survive. Because, I'm not going to be like Gandhi and sit on the street. I mean, as I keep on telling the other activists who want me to spend my money and time that I don't have traveling across the country to attend their little speeches and buy their books, I'm like, you guys, if I do not keep a roof over my head, an internet connection, I'm no good to any of you. Now, all of them are promoting their books, complaining about how they are, have lost their money, lost their incomes, lost their careers, and they got to find a new career. They've got to, they gotta get back to being rich. I mean, if any of them would help me, then we can move on. I mean, are any of them out there? She's got a PayPal on a war on domestic terrorism. Can somebody send some donations to her? Or how about if we start promoting what she's saying, and that we need to go to the courts rather than promoting our own books so that we can make money? And the problem, this is within the domestic violence industry. This is the human rights industry. Kerry Kennedy, Ethel Kennedy, they started that back in '68 was when Ethel Kennedy started that BS human rights NGO. Everybody knows the human rights courts, the international conventions, all of that. It's a joke. They have no teeth. Why? Because they are inundated with people, managerialists, feminists, affirmative actionists. They're all left. I mean, everyone that I've come across is alt left within the human rights community. They're just as responsible as the feminists and the women's rights, the domestic violence. I mean, the feminists are the women's rights. They say women's rights NGOs, but again, it's not. It's for a certain minority, whoever, because the common denominator there within the whole left is Machiavellian bitch. Whoever can be the biggest Machiavellian bitch and grapple up the ladder is who deserves to be in power. I mean, the day after Trump won, the night before I was there, the Women's National Democratic Club at the DuPont Circle. I went in and the receptionist said, "Oh, you should be up on a podium giving a speech that it was canceled because we didn't win." I said, "Yeah, I should be when I speak with Norcia Curia. Is it Cure? Currie, I think it is, RER. She's, Middle Eastern. I'm not sure if I think she might be Pakistani. Oh, she's up shit's creek without a paddle. See, I want her investigated, and the Democratic National Women's Club, for the members in there that are domestic violence extremists under Joe Biden's report that came out in 2021. I want all of the now Feminist Majority Foundation. Well, UN Women see with the IMF, World Bank, the UN. I mean, the people here in Washington or in New York as well, anybody who is working or living in US jurisdiction, then you know, that can come under it. But see what the national governments are going to be going after the international community, whereas it's the international community who should be overseeing the national governments. So the oversight is going to flip. So you can understand the conflict of interest there, because there's corruption within as much problems within at the national levels, the same problems at the national levels than the international levels. However, I've set it up under RICO, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, Patriot Act here in Washington. I've been arguing that for about 4 years, the different people. I came across RICO. I was like, ooh, then the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, now the Patriot Act. I was like, ooh, yeah, bring it on board. I've been arguing this in international conventions, and I really haven't gone into the American Constitution because it's you know, it was the Spanish legal system. Oh Lord, I would have gone that down a long time ago under U.S. federal law and Constitution. But everybody says our Constitution is the greatest Constitution in the world. It's not true. Not at all. Anybody got a brain? You don't even have to be a lawyer. You got a brain. Read the Spanish Constitution. You can get it in English. And read the American Constitution and Bill of Rights. Now, for the Spanish Constitution, you're going to also have to read their penal code and their civil code and international conventions, because it does integrate all of that. So see how it gets much more complicated than the American system. But for defending and reclaiming rights, I'm in utopia over there. Wow, this is pretty much a shit show. There's, yeah, as I say, I'd have to go. My most radical solution at this point, and I can just hear the traitor, but not at all. Let's start a new constitution like the Spaniards, because my Lord, then I would really be able to go to town. But I'm working with what I got at national levels, and at the moment, that's RICO, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, and Patriot Act. And really, I don't need anything else to clean this place up, except some lawyers with good faith and some courts with good faith. Because I know that the judges are just as bad. I mean, they were lawyers. They went to law school. And they're just as misogynistic, corrupt, and don't have a freaking idea about the fundamentals of law as their lawyers. The Clark Report, 1970, 70% of lawyers don't know what the hell they're doing. So what have we done since then? Oh, law schools, let's churn out a whole bunch of entitled, narcissistic, idiot lawyers who don't need, know anything, in a country where everybody wants to become successful and part of the ruling elite by becoming a doctor or a lawyer so they can become rich. I mean, my father didn't get into being a doctor to become rich, and it's by any means, even though he was one of the top cardiologists of this country, if not world, and world renowned for his research in thrombosis. Everybody just always assumed rich doctor. No, because he didn't care about one bit about money. My mom certainly did. Oh, and there was never enough of it. I mean, this is how I know that you can just keep on pouring money into these ladies and men who just want, like Trump. It's never enough. Never. And that's who guides the invisible hand of the American ruling elite: white trash, brown trash, black trash, and yellow trash. I say, I don't know if there are any green trash out there colluding. I mean, that's another interesting thing that's coming out. I mean, I've always believed, my mother, one of the few times I ever saw her like be funny or with a joke, we were still living in Tucson, and she's like, girls, come. There's a UFO outside. Like, what? And April Fools. She was reading Chariots of the Gods and stuff at the time. See, my mom, I mean, alt-right Nancy Reagan, but she wasn't the, actress harlot that Nancy Reagan was. I mean, she was going to become a nun. Well, that's what the story is. Oh God, Lord preserve us. And believe me, some of the stories of the nun, I mean, everybody that they become a nun because they're good people, I'm like, you want to take through a trip through history in the Catholic Church? And I'll debunk that one for you real quick. Because it wasn't the reality, because you had too many psychopaths and narcissists amongst the ruling elite. I mean, that was where the ruling elite women who didn't want to marry would go for careers, because they did do a lot of things, even embroidery and artisan work, or producing food. These were not, just sitting around going all day long. I mean, the monasteries, the nunneries, they had to have, some activity also, financial, but as well as work for their making bread, just like everybody else. They had to eat and live. So that's another thing that needs to be looked at. But as I say, that was the only time that but that was my introduction, I guess. Chariot of the Gods, and my mom reading Chariot of the Gods was like, well, yeah, I mean, it really is very egocentric of us to believe that we're the only ones that exist in the universe, when particularly when I started studying astronomy, and how many stars there are, which have planets, some of them, it statistically speaking, I think if you crunch the numbers, it would be very unlikely that we would be the only ones. So, and there's a lot of stuff that's we all know, they've been sitting on the American government, all sorts of stuff. Hitler, the Third Reich, was very involved with that as well. And as this government, the American government, and it's not just the under Hitler one, it's been since after World War II, and the Nazi Germans came, the leftovers came and installed themselves in the United States to begin the rise of the Fourth Reich. So yeah, I don't have any secret documents of who would have been involved in here. No, but see, this is what socialite women and ruling elite women going, no, I don't need all of the evidence. Now, I know this is going on. Now, you little boys over there, you want your dinner? You don't want to sleep on the couch? Well, then you're going to go investigate that, because that's what you men are supposed to be doing in our societies, making sure that us women and children are safe. That's your fundamental job. And you're not doing it. I mean, I know a whole school of little ladies have gone over there with you and saying how great they're doing as well. They're just screwing it up worse. And whoever doesn't get their shit together, they can go and sit in a prison along with the little boys. That's the bottom line. And I'm sure the American people would be like, yeah, that's it. And we're cool. We're good to go. You guys start getting your shit together. We're going to be pissed off. We're going to be watching. But if you start getting your shit together, we'll stop attacking you on Capitol Hill. Or, and escalating the violence. But since you're not doing anything, you just get more security detail, get more police, get more weapons to show them that you're going to oppress them and shoot them or lock them up if they make any noise. And I mean, I had it with the Black Lives Matter demonstration the day that Trump walked through Lafayette Park. I was there. I'd left 45 minutes before. I know exactly how long it was because I was walking in the door and Trump, on TV, I saw Trump going through there. I was horrified. As I say, I'd been down there and I had been so pissed off because I said, oh, God damn it. Once again, a bunch of entitled little narcissistic idiots during Corona who are there for a selfie, then to place on Facebook to show how all of their girlfriends, how cool they are. Is it any wonder that these demonstrations are bullshit and they're just producing more cacophony? There's been trying leadership. Who's organizing this? I mean, well, with the mothers of lost children, the other activists. I went to the first demonstration. Okay, who's organizing this? Who are the players? Who's involved at the leadership? Oh, nobody. We all just came. I'm like, oh, great. Oh, great. You guys are playing the same games. And then, oh, God, how many of the all of the like Black Foxcroft girls, all of them then say, put on there, that they're doing a lot of activism work because they gave a speech at Black Lives Matter. See, that's what everybody thinks that activism work is. That's what I mean. Megyn Kelly, I'm listening to some, oh God, that's I mean, you talk about your alt-right. I mean, activist for her is a dirty word. And I think for most people now, I'm understanding the second I say activist, they're like, oh God, a cackling hen again, get away. That's because that's all there is. None of them have substance. None of them have a platform. None of them have an agenda. No, it's just to get up and give another speech and then tell everybody what a great liberal activist you are. Or volunteer in some BS NGO that's fraudulent all over frickin' Washington. It boggles the mind. But this was the plan of the Koch brothers and the Fourth Reichers back in the 60s. And they have been successful. So if anybody wants to reverse the trend, it's to get rid of the white, brown, black, and yellow trash that control Washington, be they women and or men. So anyway, that's for today. As I say, I'll do the like. I'm still looking at so many things. There are so many profiles to go through. There are some not just documentaries but movies. I was watching The Irishman, which was about Jimmy Hoffa and Jimmy Hoffa's. It was told from the perspective of his bodyguard, and very, very well done. Oh, Italian bigwigs names. So bad with actors' names, but everybody will know them. And you know, I think, see, that's a positive. I mean, this is an Italian community actors that want to, you know, it's more entertaining to watch that than a documentary. And it can be just as informative, if not more, because if the people who wrote it and put it together are working off of historical facts, rather than just having somebody sit down and read. You know, of course, it's more entertaining, and you capture a bigger audience that way, but your message is the same. Hollywood does produce some good stuff, but one of the things that was really interesting in that was it does put forth or really kind of give a lot of teeth to the idea that JFK and Bobby were assassinated by the mob, by the mafia, because yes, their father, Joseph Kennedy, was not into bootlegging, but his father had been into alcohol. You know, his grandfather, starting in Ireland, had even learned how to, it was the third son of a farmer, Kennedy farmer, that's this southeast. And so he didn't have much prospect. I mean, he wasn't getting the farm, the family farm. So of course, these second, third, fourth sons, just like with the royal family, you're not going to get the property, you're going to have to learn a trade. And he learned, excuse me, co-operating. I had to Google that. It's making the casks and you know, things for your recipients for your alcohol. So that's, and he had learned that from a man in Ireland, and that man came to the United States, and he followed him over to Boston, and that man helped him get set up. And that was the one who that would have been so Joseph Kennedy's grandfather, who was the one who died, left Joseph Kennedy's father young to you know, help support the family. Now he did go to school till he was 14, but his father died before that. So his mother had a store, but they did sell alcohol, liquor. Now this was way before Prohibition, but by the time Prohibition came along, this is at the end of PJ was his name's life, and he was smart. He had divested into importing Scotch whiskey, which is the same as bringing in the cocaine and and produced the same problems as has happened under the new Jim Crow and the failed war on drugs. So, you know, the Kennedy family, yes, their money came from that. Was, okay, invested in Wall Street, which ended up with the crash. He was smart again. He got out before the crash came, and the Kennedy family lived in luxury while the country went through a depression. Yeah, he was was smart. But he was just out for him and his family, and to make them into a political power elite family in the United States. And he was successful. He couldn't do it himself because he was white trash. But he could give his son, Joseph, that's what Joseph went to, I think Joseph was the first to attend Choate, and then Harvard. And then it became kind of a family tradition, but they're not the schools that his grandfather would have been going to. So once again, yes, rags to riches, opportunity in America the Great. Well, opportunity in America the Great for them to enrich themselves and become this wealthy, wealthy family, because it was a Gilded Age, which happened because the industrialists had won the Civil War, and we're going to show those Confederates who was boss and who was going to run this country. And the industrialists that's another reason why the South and the Midwest have been so hurt in terms of economics, socially, economically, and politically, by what's been going on for over 100 years. Because since the South lost to the industrialist, and it's been payback, and well, we won, so all the resources are for us. The bankers, justice. And we saw that with the Nuremberg trials. When I was looking into that, there was a very good movie, again, historical, that re-looked at the trials and from the perspective of the Germans who were put on trial. Because all of them, and I have to say, they were right. They said, wait a second, we were in the military, we're just following orders of our government. That's what a military's job is to do. What you were asked, what you were expecting, or what was expected of them, was to have started a mutiny. Now, General Milley, for example, I would never say, General Milley, you have to stop obeying the orders of the American government. Never. However, General Milley, I don't go up any farther than this on the military, and I mean, okay, it doesn't come directly under policing, but it is a different type of policing. So it is, the armed forces of the Americans. I don't get any higher. Now, I'm not asking you to, mutiny or anything like that, which is what actually they had told the generals at the Nuremberg trials they should have done. What I am telling you to do, or what I am asking your support in, because you are responsible for the lives of all of these people who are going to end up in a bloodbath, if you sit on this, because everybody else is sitting on it. So yeah, you're at the top level. However, what I am requesting of you is not any kind of mutiny, not any kind of, a refusal to follow orders that, just because you don't like it, you can't just say no, because then that is a military coup. However, you certainly can support my calling in the name of our armed forces in this country, who are on the front line of violence if this continues to escalate, that you want an investigation into all of the people that I have identified in Washington as domestic violence extremists, responsible for the escalating civil unrest and violence, breakdown rule of law, civil unrest that comes with it, and violence that comes with it. Now, that's certainly within his power and authority. And in fact, if he doesn't do it, which he's just ignored me, then I stick him in the pile under RICO, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, and Patriot Act. So what they were asking of these guys in the Nuremberg trials is like, they're like, you guys have an army, you can't do that. So they were like, we were just following orders from the elected officials that the people elected. And what we did at the time, there was no law against it. Again, correct. One of the principles of the penal systems, if you cannot make, particularly criminal offenses, retroactive. Well, it would just open up a Pandora's box, which it did. And so part of what I found was the breakdown with the rule of law. Again, let's get some statistics. Let's get some, experts in all of these different domains, but I'm sure we can track this. Historians, this is what intersectional examination would be about. You really want to disprove me on this? Okay. I mean, okay, we could argue that I have to prove it, but then I got all these books here. But there, what effect did that have on the integrity of court systems, not just in the United States, but everywhere? That idea, well, we'll just make it retroactive, because that's fundamentally what they did. Now, were the atrocities? Yes, there were. I'm not denying the atrocities that were committed. It's just everybody wants a scapegoat so that they can just move on, the sacrificial lamb, Jesus Christ up on a cross. And then they can move on and just keep on doing the same crap. But they found somebody to point the finger at and put the blame on. And so now they've expunged their souls, their reputation, not their souls, because God sees it all. So, and that's basically fundamentally what it is. Why did they have to expunge their reputations? This is another thing that gets into class. See, class is about the way you treat people and not acting like an animal. I mean, animal, fornicating all over the place. I mean, particularly Hollywood, I'm like, excuse me, does anybody ever do it in a bed anymore? Not like throwing some woman up against the wall and 100 Mile High Club, I'm sure. Oh, like Little Miss Naive Quenby, what's that? And I've been traveling on planes since before I can remember. Jet setting around the world since I was in the 70s. And when I came back to the States, I heard about that one. And I was like, Rose, God, the bathrooms in those places, the airplanes have gotten worse and worse and worse and worse over the decades. Now it's like a freaking, gas station. Like, let me not touch anything in here. I'm gonna have sex in it. But also maybe that's why they're so dirty. This is another thing. Like when back in the 70s, no, not a lot of people were traveling on airplanes. Believe me, I've seen the population explosion going on in airports all of these years. And I'm just like, I don't know how you people enjoy doing this. I mean, you know, because, and it's just now with all the security, and I'm like, oh God, no, anytime, if I cannot take an airplane, I'm very happy not to. Now, of course, across the Atlantic, I'm not going to take a boat. So obviously, when I'm going to cross the Atlantic, I'm going to have to go there. But even within Europe, I mean, we really need a train system like they have in Europe, and high speed. That is ridiculous that we don't. Absolutely ridiculous. And why do we not? It's because the big oil guys have been in power and have everybody in their pockets. Because of course, airplanes spend a lot of money on gasoline. Now, who cares if we trash the planet? No. And the Americans are controlled by big oil, weapons producers, which are in there with the industrialists. They're a subgroup of the industrialists, and managerialists, techie gurus, techie liberals, all, and our populations, Americans, are becoming stupider and stupider. I mean, just stupider and stupider and stupider, and more crass, and more obnoxious, and more rude, and more corrupt, more and more amoral. I mean, this is the America the Great American dream of our founding fathers, John Dickinson, John Paul Jones, and all of the soldiers who fought to separate themselves from this exact paradigm and start something new. And excuse my French, but because I think we need a de-escalation in the swearing, because even I'm swearing more. I used to tell my children, I better not hear those words coming out of your mouth. However, there are times when the situation s'oblige. And everybody in this country has really fucked it up since the American Revolution. And before. I mean, we already, again, I don't want to go into the founding fathers. I'm sorry. Look to John Dickinson. Stop looking to Thomas Jefferson. Stop looking to Hamilton, John Adams. Those were really all warmongers. Look to John Dickinson. If John Dickinson prevailed, I mean, we wouldn't have separated from England. I mean, I'm not proposing we go back and become a colony of England. However, if John Dickinson had prevailed, we wouldn't have had the American War. We would have had a peaceful solution, and we probably wouldn't have had the Civil War. Or maybe not World War, because we had our hand in the Gilded Age of World War I and World War II. We helped create that situation. So this is again more evidence of historical trajectories, not some wacko white deposed Stepford wife who hangs out in country clubs and just repeats any bullshit that the little ladies around her are coming up with. This is based on fact and evidence. This is why nobody knows how to look at facts and evidence anymore, because that's what the ruling elite women are teaching their children, telling their husbands to do, and doing themselves. And that's why they need to graduate from great prep schools and Ivy League schools to have this diploma and then get certificates to tell how smart they are, when they don't understand a freaking thing. And I only know because I went to school with a lot of these people and I interact with a lot of these people, and my family is from these. I keep on saying, well, you guys are just providing more and more evidence that our higher education systems are bullshit and churning out a whole bunch of people who don't understand anything about anything. Just how to keep up with the Joneses with your Machiavellian games. So, okay, so have a nice evening. Gosh, I'm going on for a lot. Okay, so have a nice evening. Oh, I don't have my mask out. Wear your masks. I walk down the street all, you know, when I go out for my walk. Yesterday, the lady at the, that's why I haven't been on. I've been writing some letters past week or so. Hopefully Prince Andrew, now that he has the lawyer, now that Prince Andrew's been served, maybe Brettler, I mean, because Glavin, Cuomo's lawyer, is not sitting ready with me. And with where I'm going to go on the courts with all of this stuff. This is political. This is getting into politically motivated. So they're getting into the feminists are getting into real dangerous waters here with the Cuomo affair and the Prince Andrew. So, but of course, since the lawyers are hanging everybody out, their clients out to dry, because their interests is keeping up the cash flow and not cleaning this up. Glavin, I mean, I know you're gonna, just ignore me till I go away. Hopefully it'll get to Cuomo. But with Prince Andrew, his lawyer, he was a lawyer, and I sent it to his boss, who's a partner, the one, I mean, these are the guys who, this is the name of their law firm. Like, you better stop ignoring me, because I'm not going away, and I'm watching. Oh, I'm watching real close. And I'm gonna find out who Gofrey's lawyers are, or Gofrey lawyers are, and everybody who's supporting all of this and shutting me up. Because for Prince Andrew, that was back in 2019. I wrote beginning of 2019. I looked into that case. Should have been thrown out. The prosecutors should have laughed it out, and thrown out of court. No. Money and high profile and political motivation. See, it's not just voting rights that people need to be looking at. So, okay, have a nice evening. Bye-bye. And wear your masks. It's driving me crazy.